Hi everybody, I'm James Golding from Eley Hawk, and today I'm going to be cooking some pheasant fingers with a really rich rapeseed tartar sauce and some flat leaf parsley. This is a great dish as an introductory dish to kids or people that haven't had pheasant before, and it's a great way to use up any game you may have left in your freezer. So let's get into it. Okay, so to begin with, we need to prep down the pheasant. Now, pheasants usually come in different sort of sizes depending on the time of the season that they were shot. For this dish, we're only going to use the breasts. Make sure you don't waste any of the meat left over. These can be slow cooked in stews or shredded down and put into pies and all sorts of things. So very important that you don't waste anything. But for this, we literally only want the breast. So I'm just going to cut the pheasant either side of the breasts, and then following the breastbone, we're just going to cut inwards so that we release the meat from there. Like a chicken, we have the wishbone at the back. Same the other side, cut in and follow the wishbone down at the back, and then using a sharp knife, we're just going to cut the flesh away from the carcass. Now, there's two ways to making goujons. You can leave the skin on, or you can take the skin off. Personally, I like to take the skin off because I think that it makes for a cleaner product at the end. And basically what we're doing is we're just making a bit like chicken tenders, but with pheasant. And my kids absolutely love these. This is a dish that is a great introductory dish to children. In actual fact, 9 times out of 10, they don't even know that they're eating pheasant, which isn't a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a good way to get them trying the different flavours of game. Now, it's probably quite important to say right now, if we are making these for young kids, it's probably better not to have the pheasant too well hung. And I know that there's a bit of an idea as to what is that magic number, how many days do you hang it for, or weeks in some cases. Personally, I don't like my pheasant to be too high. I do like probably around sort of 3 to 4 days. Now, there'll be some people out there saying that's far too short, you know, it's got to be longer. But I think for the purposes of this dish, you know, this is a lighter dish. This is something that, you know, is a bit more sort of family friendly. So if I could give any advice, it would be to probably give it about 3 days. Now, as we all know, this is a wild animal. This has been shot. This has been shot with stainless steel. So it's very important that when we're looking at the breast, we look for any sort of entry holes just to see if there's any shot left in there. So very important, do a visual check, make sure there's nothing left in there that could potentially get into the finished product. So we're cutting the fingers now. We want about sort of 1 inch thick and sort of 3 inches long. These will obviously be a bit bigger when finished because we're going to pané them. So we'll get about, so that's 3, 4. We're looking about sort of 8 fingers out of the whole pheasant. So we'll cut that down. I've also separated off the fillets at the back, so we can leave that whole. You don't need to cut that down. So that's all nicely prepped. I've got my oil coming up to the heat now. So I'm going to show you how to make the rapeseed mayonnaise. Okay, so we're going to make the rapeseed mayonnaise. Now, it's super simple, but it's quite important that you follow a few steps. First step is we need to separate the egg whites from the egg yolks. For this recipe, I'm going to use 3 eggs. And you can keep the egg whites for anything you want. Make a cheeky egg white omelette or meringue or something like that. Or even a sour mix, if you like whiskey sours. It's a great way to utilise up your egg whites. Just shake them up in a cocktail shaker. So, those go in. After that, we need to add a dash of vinegar. Now, it can be any vinegar. You can use, this is actually cider vinegar, but you can use white wine if you'd like, white wine vinegar. About sort of tablespoon, I would say. And then the other very important ingredient is mustard. Again, you can use English but for this I'm using Dijon. So a good spoonful of mustard in there. Now, like I said before, this is a rapeseed mayonnaise, so we're going to use cold pressed rapeseed oil. Now, rapeseed oil is a very nutty flavour, it's very intense, and I don't know how much of this we want to use in here. It would depend on your oil, so it can get a bit intense. So what I would say is halfway through this process, taste it. If it is getting a bit too kind of intense, you then supplement out with veg oil. So you'll see how we do this along the way. So we want to blend all of this together. If, for whatever reason, your food processor isn't quite hitting it, just angle it slightly and you will see that it starts to blend nicely. And we're just bringing all this together. It doesn't need to be a sabayon or anything like that, just a nice mix. So, we'll start adding our oil. It's very important when you add the oil, you add it slowly. So just a nice, constant, steady flow, so you allow it all to emulsify. You can hear it starting to come together now. You hear the noise starts to change slightly as it starts to thicken. At this point I'm going to stop, I'm going to add some salt and pepper and taste it. So at the moment it's about the sort of consistency of probably like a hollandaise sauce, I would say. So you can see it's starting to thicken up, but it's still a little bit runny. So it's tasting good. We'll add in some salt, a little bit of pepper, and I'm also going to add a little squeeze of lemon juice. Now, for me, the rapeseed oil is fine. The actual levels are really good. It's not too intense. There's no bitterness, so I'm going to continue to use this rapeseed oil. But if you get a bitterness when you try it, when you're making it at home, then it's not a bad thing. It just means you've got a really good quality rapeseed oil. So if it's too intense, just swap it out for a base vegetable oil. Okay? Okay, that is looking perfect. So my top tip is if you add in too much of the oil and you can see it's super thick and it's not able to be spread, then just don't panic, get a little bit of warm water and just add that in drop by drop, and you'll find that it will come back to the consistency that you want. So the consistency we're looking for is a lovely shine, thick enough so it just kind of drops off the spoon, like so. So not runny and not so thick that it doesn't fall off. So that's what we're looking for, and it's delicious. So let's make the dressing. So there's the mayonnaise as it looks, and into this mayonnaise we're going to add in our components for our sauce. Now it's very, very similar to a tartar sauce, so if you wanted to use this recipe for fish, that'd be absolutely fine, but for today this works really well with the pheasant fingers. So I'm just lightly chopping some capers into the mayo, and then some cornichons. You can use dill cucumbers if you wanted to. The pickled dill ones, I do actually quite like the sweetness on those, but for the purposes of this dish, the cornichons work very well. So just cut those into rounds and then just run your knife through them a little bit. You don't want them too fine. I quite like the big chunks of pickled gherkin in there. So that'll do. That's going in as well. Into this, we're also adding some lemon zest. We've already added the lemon juice, don't forget. So this is purely just the zest. probably around about half a lemon's worth of zest. That will do. And then also a nice pinch of flat leaf parsley. Now, you can use curly parsley if that's all you've got. Personally, I prefer the flat leaf. I think it gives a slightly better flavour and a slightly different texture. So there is actually persil that you can add into this if anybody's grown that this year. It's actually a very fashionable thing to be growing, which is a celery and parsley hybrid. So that would also work in here. So that's all the ingredients, and we're just going to mix that together to make our sauce. So that's all done. Once you've done this, cover it. You can put it in the fridge, and then that's ready for when we start to plate up. Now we're going to pane the pheasant and get these frying. Okay, so now it's time to pane the pheasant. So what I have here is a pane setup. We have seasoned flour, whole eggs beaten up, and some panko breadcrumbs. Now you don't need to use panko, you can use any sort of breadcrumbs, although the panko does give a better end result, because if they're too dark, say you make it with whole grain bread or anything like that, they'll burn quite quickly. So first thing to do is lightly season your pheasant, salt and pepper. Give those a little sort of roll around, and then into the flour. Give it a little shake off, into the egg, and yep, you've guessed it, into the breadcrumbs. Now, you can do these twice. Personally, I don't think they need it. So you end up with what looks like a little pheasant finger, or a goujon, whichever you'd like to call it. But the idea is that we pane them nice and evenly all over. We let them sit for a few minutes, and then once these are all done, we're going to fry them in our vegetable. So, as you can see, our pheasant fingers come out the fryer. You want them a beautiful golden brown colour like this. And they almost look a bit like something that could come from a well-known chicken high street store. But this is obviously a very special version. This is filled with pheasant. So, I've taken my dressing out of the fridge, which is the mayonnaise. And this is really, really simple. It's as easy as a dollop of the mayonnaise on the plates. We'll take 4 of these pheasant fingers, just sort of give them a bit of height, like so, and then if you have time, just a little bit of crispy flat leaf parsley for a garnish. Now, if you don't want to mess around with a tabletop fryer, or you're looking for a slightly healthier option, these can be cooked in a pan, shallow fry, as you would say something like an escallop or a schnitzel or something like that. It can be done exactly the same way. So please don't think that we have to deep fry them. There is a healthier option. All I would say is that if you're going to pan fry them, maybe just finish them through the oven at about 180 degrees for 3 or 4 minutes afterwards. So here it is. Here's our pheasant fingers with a tartar sauce and crispy parsley, ready for the whole family to enjoy.